Bret Gilliam has strong memories of the day his diving buddy was attacked by sharks and dragged into the murky depths of the Caribbean, even though it happened 25 years ago. In a terrifying essay for Scuba Times, he revealed what really happened on that tragic day in the Virgin Islands for the first time. At Cane Bay on the north shore of St. Croix, Gilliam, now editor of the Advanced Diving Journal and president of Technical Diving International, was with Rod Temple and Robbie McIlvaine on a scientific mission to gather samples for a study project. The aim was to photograph and check the deepest project, which was situated on the side of a precipitous cliff at a depth of 210 feet. As the dive leader, Temple was in charge of the paperwork and the decompression schedule, which he managed while ascending. Gilliam described seeing the man's lifeless body drift into the abyss as the shark continued to attack. Moreover, many people think Gilliam shouldn't have survived his hasty ascension from 400 feet with almost no oxygen in his tanks. Gilliam, Temple, and McIlvaine, seasoned veterans of hundreds of deep dives, descended the cliff at Cane Bay. At 210 feet, they located the collection project that had been established on a previous dive. Temple wandered around as Gilliam and McIlvaine worked. He noticed a pair of white-tipped sharks, and smaller ones being around 12 feet in length, and the larger ones measuring a bit more than twice that. In his own words, "This was nothing new to us, as we dove with sharks routinely," Gilliam explains. It was unusual for open ocean species to be spotted so close to land, though. McIlvaine got the ball rolling once they had finished their previous task. Once more he saw the sharks moving past the coral and into a sandy passage. Gilliam had previously experienced nasty encounters with white tips while diving further offshore, so the sharks' apparent indifference to the divers was surprising. According to Gilliam's account, our plan called for Rod to be the last guy up. Robbie and I waited for each other at 175 feet, just above a ledge where we relaxed on the coral. Robbie fidgeted, indicating that he was running low on air and worried about being late. With a shrug and a "what am I supposed to do" look, I waited with him. Robbie threw aside his surplus equipment and leaped toward the wall, pointing at a cloud of bubble exhaust rising from the depths of the ocean. They were both under the impression that Rod had experienced an air failure, seeing as how my oxygen intake was lower. I decided to dispatch Robbie upwards and see if Rod required any assistance. Robbie gave me the anxious OK sign as I descended into the bubble cloud, and we both got going. By the time I reached Rod, everything was as bad as it possibly could be. A white-tipped shark measuring in at 12 feet long had bitten into Temple's left thigh and was ripping at his flesh with great force. There were bloody clouds of bubbles. An instant later, a second shark leapt out of the water and slashed off Temple's calf. In an effort to liberate Temple, Gilliam seized the latter by the shoulder harness and yanked. Both divers punched at the sharks until they let go, but only temporarily. They went behind Gilliam and attacked Temple again, this time focusing on his bleeding legs. Gilliam felt Temple's body become limp in his arms as he realized Temple had lost a lot of blood. But he didn't let go, and the divers and sharks slid downward until Temple was pulled from Gilliam's hands by the sharks, leaving Gilliam 400 feet below the surface, stunned and nearly out of oxygen. While his depth gauge read 325 feet, he was confident they were actually much deeper. Through a haze of narcosis and exertion, the bleakness of my own circumstances imposed itself on me. That's when I realized I couldn't breathe anymore. Subconsciously, I always made the choice to remain there and perish. It felt entirely hopeless, and all my energy had been drained. However, I threw my head back and concentrated my entire body strength into a wide, consistent power kick directed upwards toward the surface. Forcing my mind to stay on the upward trajectory of my kick cycle, I managed to will myself to a higher place. I peered at my depth gauge after what felt like a lifetime and saw that it was still set at 325 feet. I took a deep breath by sucking on the regulator. A little, but it kept my oxygen-starved brain going for a little longer. And I hoped my legs would lift me up to shallow enough depth to take another breath before hypoxia, abnormally low levels of oxygen in the blood, permanently disabled my systems. The combination of oxygen deprivation and adrenaline-fueled survival instincts is something that cannot be adequately described. But I kept telling myself that I could only kick hard enough, I would survive. A lack of urgency set in after a while, and I remembered trying to find the surface through a red haze that progressively narrowed into a tunnel before I passed out. My anxiety subsided, and as I drifted off to sleep, I told myself, damn, I almost made it. Incredible as it may seem, Gilliam did finally make it. He was able to float to the surface thanks to the air in his life jacket, showing that even if you think you know sharks and how they don't always attack humans on purpose, they can still attack you for invading their turf. Another lesson learned the hard way by a lot of people.